The following is a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about them Cowboys?
Yeah!
Go Cowboys!
This is Talkin Cowboys. Streaming live from the Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters at the Star in Frisco.
Pollard streaks in. Touchdown. Parsons has sacked it. Prescott keeps it, and he bangs it in for the touchdown.
And now your hosts, Isaiah Stanback, Nick Harris, John Machota, and Kyle Yeomans.
I hope you had your Black Rifle coffee this morning, everybody. Cowboys Nation, welcome into a Monday edition of Talkin Cowboys, presented by Black Rifle Coffee. You're going to need it because there is a lot to talk about. 28-23, the final score. Philadelphia takes down Dallas in Week 9 of the NFL season. Isaiah Stanback is here. Nick Harris is here. I'm here, Kyle Yeomans. We've got Chris Beam in the back running everything.
Beamer.
And really, I don't know outside of a playoff game, because playoff games, every play matters. It always does. NFL season, for the most part, every play matters. I don't know if I remember a game outside of playoff time where when we go back and look at this football game, there is legitimately every play was the deciding factor, or could have been the deciding factor. It was one of those games where the breaks go your way, the game goes your way. Mm-hmm. The breaks don't go your way, the game doesn't. 28-23, and there's a lot to hit on this. So I'll let Nick start things off. You were in the building at Lincoln Financial Field. I don't even know where to start.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Just your overall thoughts.
Yeah, this is about as true of a game of inches as you could find in pretty much any game. It had a playoff atmosphere from the very beginning. I kind of wrote about it last night on DallasCowboys.com. It's rare that you get a playoff type feel in early November like this. Whenever both teams took the field, the energy it was palpable in the stadium. It carried throughout the entire game, and it wasn't over until the clock hit all zeros. I look at good things and I look at bad things out of this game, and I think honestly I feel like the good overweighs the bad at times. But the bad is so it's so plaguey that it just doesn't go away. Like, there's some things that we've seen from this team that are bad this season that just continue to pop up, and just when you think that it's penalties, they figured it out against the Rams, bam, it's right back. Even if some were just, some were unjust, whatever, still being in a position to be in those situations. We can start with the good. Dak Prescott. I think the confidence level it would have to be increased after the last couple of weeks coming out of the bye week. I think there was something that probably happened during the bye week that allowed them to utilize Dak to his max efficiency. For me, it's his mobility once again. I mean, he was working magic in the pocket last night. His pocket presence was incredible. Even if it did crash in on a couple of times, he was still able to get outside and avoid most of the pressures that Hassan Reddick was in the backfield quite a bit last night, as well as Fletcher Cox. We can stay with the good. Limiting A.J. Brown to 66 yards or whatever it was, I think if you had told me that would be the case coming in, I'd be like, okay, so the Cowboys won. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. Looking at the bad, I talked about the penalties. Gosh, there's two players I look at, and I'm like, man, if even one of them has a better night, I think this ends up being a different result. It's Jordan Lewis and Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele probably more so. It was on that final drive, that's when it really became a plague, Terrence Steele, and unfortunately they weren't able to climb out of that late hole, and they had two really good opportunities to do so. You look at the Schoonmaker play and how just so very close it would have been to 6 added points there. It's a game of inches, and I know the officials are a big part of the dialogue this morning on just kind of how things went in that game, but the officials went against both teams. I mean, you look at that final drive with Philadelphia, there were a couple of calls there that were like, all right, it evened out. I think at the end of the day, Philadelphia was just a better team last night. However, there was a lot of confidence in the locker room after the game. Like, yeah, they lost. Like, CeeDee Lamb, he was kind of teared up whenever we first walked in, and then he kind of got himself together and he was fine. But everyone kind of had the same view of the game. Is like, hey, like, we can contend with this team. Like, this is not what happened in San Francisco. We were 3-4 yards away from making this happen. They still claim to be in the upper echelon. I think they're very clear in the second now after last night. I mean, you have to beat a team like that on the road before I can put you in the upper echelon. But there's a really good opportunity to go 3-0 over the course of the next 3 weeks. Home against the Giants, at Carolina, and then home against the Commanders. If you're looking at 8-3, welcoming Philly back into Dallas, then who knows? Maybe both teams are looking at the same record with what the Eagles have coming up. They have the Chiefs, the Bills, the Dolphins. So we'll see. I don't think this is the end of the world. This is not. I do not feel like how I felt like coming after San Francisco.
No.
I think this is a much different feel, and that's a team that they can beat, and I think that's a team they'll see 3 times this year.
I'm proud of them. I don't I understand the fandom side of it where people are like, oh man, we were really close and we hate the Eagles and we want to win. I get it. The reality is you've closed the gap that was massive after the first couple games in the season. When you got beat up by San Francisco, you were far behind. I mean, you're way behind San Francisco. Obviously, you're way behind Philadelphia. Since that game, you have closed the gap in terms of the distance between you and those that are considered to be better than you. And that's the positive, right? Yeah, you lost the game, but guess what? I look at it like this. If you're racing against Usain Bolt, okay, a lot of people race against Usain Bolt. A lot of people lost to Usain Bolt. But guess what? Every time, if I get a little bit closer to Usain Bolt, I can walk away with my chest poked out and say, oh, hey, you got me, but I'm coming, right? I'm getting closer to you, right? I'm going to get you one of these days, right? And that's the
I ran a 10.02.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, you ran a 9.79. The first time you beat me, I ran a 10.3. But this time I ran a 9.9. I'm getting there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm coming, I'm getting close. And that's where the Cowboys are at. And you have to take the positives, right? When you talk about trying to achieve a goal, you have to have tangible goals along the way. It's not just you just all of a sudden leapfrog from one side of the street to the other and ta-da, we've arrived. There's baby steps that come with it. This was a baby step. You took a team that on paper you shouldn't be able to play with based upon some of the things that you've done in the past, the opponents that you've lost to. You lost to Arizona that had a similar scheme. You lost to San Francisco really bad, right? They were considered to be, A and B, or A1 and A2, however you want to look at it. San Francisco and the Eagles, and now all of a sudden you've closed that gap. You don't get to play the 49ers again, right? Unless you see them in the playoffs. But guess what? Philly is a team that you can look at and say, you know what? We put them on the same level as San Fran. And if we're this close to almost beating Philly, then we know how far we've come since losing that game. And you have to be able to take that as a positive. Yep. And I think you look at what you did, there's things that have to get cleaned up. Always is. Every single game, there's always something that has to be cleaned up. Every single game, for those that are talking about flags, there's a flag that can be thrown on every play.
Yes.
Okay, it was 10 penalties each team, I believe it was, right? Both teams had equal penalties. So that wasn't an issue. Okay, you talked about the last drive, Dallas was given opportunities to get down the field and be in the game. Decisions were made. Everybody's going to look at Coach McCarthy and say, oh, you should have. And I was one of those people. I would have taken the points in the one situation. But guess what? Either way, there's pros and cons to each. Right? There's always that's the thing about decisions. There's pros and there's cons.
Yep.
And you hope that the pros outweigh the cons. Unfortunately, they didn't in this game. But Dak Prescott played well. Your defense played their butts off. Right? The offensive line has some struggles. Your running game didn't really get going, but you didn't expect it to because of its defensive front. There was a lot of things that what you expected happened, and then what you hoped for happened. But sometimes the team is just a little bit better, and that's exactly what you ran into last night. But you have closed the gap. And you wonder why guys are walking around a lot more confident in the locker room after losing, because they know we've closed the gap. It wasn't a question, can we play with these guys? It was like, how close are we, right? The last memory we have of playing an opponent of this caliber was not a good memory, right? So all of a sudden now we play, and all right, we've come a long way in a short period of time. I'll take that as a victory all day long, even though on the record it says L.
Yeah, and the response was the exact same as well, because they started the game with a 3-and-out defensively and gave up a touchdown offensive, or you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. And they were able to respond off of that, tie the game, and stayed in it throughout the game. So
I'm looking at kind of what I said earlier about the plays, right? There were plays in this game that you can all go back and circle, and I've circled 4 of them when I went back and watched the film because of points that were left off the board. points that could have been in your favor, or points that Philly tried to give you, but ultimately, reversed, I should say, at some point down the line. I'll start with the two plays that Philly nearly gave Dallas, but didn't. They were both Swift fumbles. One was in the second quarter. It would have given the ball to Dallas at the 47-yard line. Instead, Philadelphia just basically he grabbed it for a split second and then lost it again. I didn't know you could lose two fumbles on one play like that. Yes. Swift did so apparently, but he gathered it while he was on the ground. They called him down. That was one play, 7 points. That's 7 points. And I understand from that point forward, it's a butterfly effect. One play happens a certain way. The rest of the plays may not happen a certain way. But after that, Swift fumbles in the fourth quarter on that final offensive drive for Philadelphia. Yep. The butt fumble. The butt fumble, yeah. Nearly the resurrection of the butt fumble.
It was the Brown butt fumble.
Micah Parsons had both hands on it. If he reels that in instead of just bobbling it for a split second, that's Cowboys football at the 30-yard line, and then all of a sudden you're not going 90 yards to score with 45 seconds left.
Yeah.
You're going 30 yards to score with 107 left.
And a timeout. Completely different ball game. 3 to 7 points there. Probably 7 is what you're going for, but I'm just going to say state facts there. You had points on the board there if you recover that fumble. Peyton Hendershot, non-touchdown. That's 6 or 7 points left off the board. He runs one more foot into Schoonmaker. I say Hendershot. Luke Schoonmaker runs one more foot into the end zone, and that's a touchdown. That's it. 1 foot. He takes 1/2 of a step into the end zone a little bit further on that route. That's a touchdown. And then, of course, Dak Prescott stepping out on the 2-point conversion. That plain and simple, that's 2 points on the board. And all of a sudden, it's a completely different ball game. Any of those plays go in the opposite direction of what they did. 4 separate plays. I think Dallas wins this game. But that's part of it.
Yeah.
And it happens on both sides. There were penalty flags thrown late against Philadelphia. There were times when Philadelphia had Jalen Hurts under pressure. There were times when the defense had lapses. They gave up 191 yards to CeeDee Lamb. And
there's time when you have penalties and you extended their drives. There's a whole lot of there's
a lot of it.
That's a lot of it, man. And that's why you can't just put your finger on one thing and say, "Oh, this was the deciding factor." Yeah, there's a lot of deciding factors, right? There's deciding factors in the first quarter if you really want to come down to it in that regard. It's a close game against two really good competitive teams. This is what you expected. Right? Whether it was for your team or your other team, this was the type of game that you expected, and this is the reason why they chose not to give up this game on Sunday to flex it to a Sunday night game, because they knew it was going to be a battle royale, and it's awesome. It's freaking awesome. And you look at it from the standpoint, you went in there, you made these boys have all kinds of question marks now. Philly is like, oh crap, all right, okay. What we saw against San Fran, that's not what we expected. Mm-hmm. Okay, all right. These boys came to play. And then you left Philly beat up. You beat up Philly. You left some of their main players battered and bruised. Now that's never your intention to go out there and hurt guys. But the reality is this is a very violent, physical game, and you're going out there trying to impose your will. And you left them lesser than what they came in.
I thought that was a huge positive for this team, is in games against good teams, at least over the last 2 years. Yep. You've been the lesser physical team. You were just as physical as Philadelphia, all the way through, beginning to end. You had a chance all the way through. The Dallas Cowboys were just as physically imposing as Philadelphia. Philadelphia took their lumps on offense. They took their lumps on defense, and their front seven, man, they get after the football, don't they? Mm-hmm. They gave trouble to the entire offensive line. I know we talked about Terrence Steele. We talked about Tyler Biadasz. It wasn't just those two guys that struggled up front. The offensive line struggled against one of, if not the best front seven in football.
Well, I would say Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith had arguably one of their best games all season.
There were times when they still got beat, too.
Yeah, but
when you look at the
think
film,
overall,
they both got beat. I agree overall.
Overall, when you look at what they did over the course of the game against that defensive front, the left side held up. The left side was fine. If those two guys, if all five play like those two guys, they have a clean pocket for most of the night. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to throw that in there. No, and
I'm not downgrading Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith, but for everybody that wants to point fingers at just one person or two people up front, That's not the case. There were times when Tyron Smith was in the lap of Dak Prescott. There were times when Tyler Smith was missing a block when he was trying to get up to the second level. There were times like that. But from a grand scheme of things, I mean, that's part of the reality of playing offensive line. You have 90 snaps in a game, and I know they don't play 90 snaps, but just for the sake of an argument.
65, right? I mean,
fine, 65 snaps. If you have 3 bad snaps from an offensive lineman, you're not having a great day.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just how it is. It's part of the position. I could say the same thing about Dak Prescott, too. He wasn't perfect. Don't get me wrong. But he played his butt off. He absolutely played well. You're not in that game late if Dak Prescott doesn't play as well as he does.
Yep. You relied on Dak. He threw the ball 44 times. 44 passes.
Was it you that said last week he needs to throw at least like 35 in this game? I think you had said that.
Listen here. You don't want him throwing over 40. I can tell you that much. Okay? But the reality is you weren't going to run the ball effectively against this front. You're just not. These guys are just too good up front. They held you to 3.5 yards per carry on 21 rushes. That's what you can expect out of that, right? So you have to throw your way to a victory against this team. Their secondary is a weak spot in their team. And that's what you try to expose. And Dak went 29 of 44, 65, rolled it up to 66% completion. No turnovers, right? I'm going to say that again. No turnovers.
Yep.
Against a really good defense.
And there wasn't even an opportunity where I was like, oh, that could have been bad. It was like the one sack late where he was like kind of throwing it around. I was like,
that's just him trying to
but over the
desperately make a play.
Over the past few weeks, he's controlled himself.
Yeah.
There have been throws that he almost made that he decided to take sacks on instead of throwing the ball up in the air. And super proud of him for making that progress, right? Because old Dak or early in the season, Dak would have just chucked it. Just
trying to make a play.
Trying to make a play. But guess what? He tucked it, right? He held back. That was his instinctively, he wanted to release the ball. But he pulled back. He's like, no, I'm just going to take this sack and live to play another down. He gave this team every opportunity possible to win the ball game. And he's going to look back, and yes, people are going to say, oh, well, he overthrew or Michael Gallup on the one pass. Yeah, okay, yeah. Every quarterback usually has a ball that they wish they could have back in every game. Abso-freaking-lutely, okay?
Well, just to add to your point, who's the number one film buff and somebody that was uber critical of their own mistakes throughout their career at quarterback? Tom Brady.
Yeah, TB12.
You've told me that before.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised you didn't.
No, I was trying to record with it. No,
but Tom Brady could. Across the board is known as the most lethal quarterback in NFL history.
Yeah, cerebral.
And he still had mistakes. That's just how it goes.
That's how it goes,
part of the game.
But you learn from it, And so, yes, there's a gazillion negatives. Yes, there's a lot of good positives. But the reality is, you guys, you gain ground. You gain ground. So Cowboys Nation out there, I know you're frustrated. I know you're hurting. I know you got to listen to all the little Eagles fans. You probably got to pay up on your bets, all that jazz. You take it, give your money, do your push-ups, buy the lunches, and just say, okay, I'll see you in a little bit. I'll see you next month. We'll reconvene on this. All right, because you just took a huge leap, and now you're back 2.5 games. That's the sucky part.
That's the big part.
That's the part that sucks. You're back 2.5 games. Now that gap can close because your tough part of your schedule is at the end of the year. Okay, your last 5-6 games, that's going to be a brutal. You get your mind right for that. Okay, but their tough part of their season, they're facing some of those same teams, and that is right now. Right? So right now, you have a chance to right your wrongs, get your mojo, right? Over these next few weeks, build yourself up. I'm not saying these should all be walk in the park type games, but these are games that you should be able to build your momentum going into the last part of the season. They have to deal with the fact that they're beat up. Their quarterback's limping and gimping, okay? They lost their tight end. He's going to be most likely going IR. Right, so they're going to have to figure some things out within themselves in their most difficult portion of their season. So they're going to most likely get knocked on their butts for a couple weeks and then try to figure out how to get it picked back up towards the end of the year. So you're in a good spot. It doesn't feel like it, but you're in a really good spot. And that's why the guys are walking around shaking their head like, we're good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I whenever you, I had a point I wanted to throw out there. You also have Nakobe Dean that went down in that game. Fletcher Cox was battling injury. They'll be able to go into the bye week and kind of rest up some guys and then come out against the Chiefs. They got to go to Arrowhead, so that'll definitely be interesting. But I know I've mentioned it, but you have a really good opportunity. Giants, Panthers, Commanders. You go 3-0 there, then you're welcoming in the Seahawks on Thursday night. that's a must win because you're looking at NFC contenders. You play all of them over the course of the stretch. Beating them and beating the Lions, that puts you firmly at the top of that second echelon. And then whenever you welcome Philly back in, if you're able to knock them off, then then we start talking about NFC East again. I think it's very plausible to look at 2 losses for the Eagles down this stretch that they have before they play the Cowboys, just with the amount of contenders that they have to go play. So I really think we could be looking up in December, and there's a lot of similar stakes as to what was happening in Philly last night. And I would be shocked if we don't see this game again in January.
In January.
Yep.
So you're talking playoffs.
Yep.
The one thing, I'm looking at both schedules here too, but if you take care of business, you win the 3 games and then you beat Seattle. So 4-0 over the next 4 games. I mean, you get a 4-game win streak together, which is very likely. It's not a foregone conclusion. It's the NFL. We've already seen the circle of parity this year. Any given week, any given Sunday, you can go down. If Dallas takes care of business the way that they should win the next 4 games. Philadelphia, with it being the circle of parity and going up against as many good teams as they do in a row, bang, 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 they could lose 2 games, and they could be that game that you're talking about might be for the lead in the division. They may have the exact same record at that point down the line. Now, that's looking way down the line, and there's a lot of games left to be played before then, and Dallas learned their lesson in Week 3 against Arizona not to overlook anybody.
That's Dobbs effect.
It's part of it.
Tommy DeVito effect.
Yeah. All right, let's take our first break. When we come back, we're going to hit some of these text messages. Cowboys Nation wants the sound off today, and I do not blame them. 817-290-3298 is the Cowboys Podcast text line. We're going to answer some of these questions, get to some of the fans here over the next couple of minutes as we continue to break down the 28-23 loss to Philadelphia in Week 9. More Talking Cowboys right after this.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Black Rifle Coffee Company serves premium coffee to people who love America. When you drink Black Rifle Coffee, you are directly supporting veterans, law enforcement, and first responders in your community. Black Rifle's expert roasters love coffee almost as much as Texas loves football, so it makes sense that America's Coffee partnered with America's team. Go online at blackriflecoffee.com and fuel up with the official coffee of the Dallas Cowboys. That's blackriflecoffee.com to fuel up today.
Cowboys fans, after that move, we've just coined the term Rowdy Replay. Let's roll back the tape.
Okay, there's our mascot Rowdy cheering on the boys. And now he's on his phone, on his Bank of America mobile banking app?
Staying on top of his finances with his virtual financial assistant, Erica.
Bank of America's digital tools are so impressive. Cowboys fans just can't stop banking. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/can't stop banking.
Erica is only available in the English language. You must download the latest version of the mobile banking app, only available on select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. Member FDIC.
Welcome back into Dear Doctor, the show where I answer life's questions with an ice-cold can of Dr. Pepper. Sheila, let's hear from our next caller, would you?
Dear Doctor, my friend supported me during a tough time, but what's the right gift that says, thanks for being a shoulder to cry on?
Okay, this one's easy. I say give her a delicious Dr. Pepper. Nothing says, thanks, girl, better than a one-of-a-kind soda. Yes, any Dr. Pepper flavor will do. Now, just a reminder that I don't need to be a real doctor to know that Dr. Pepper is the one you deserve.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
Back here on Talking Cowboys, this portion of the show is brought to you by Quaker Oats, a super trusted superfood. Quaker Oats, the official oatmeal sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. 28-23, Philadelphia takes down Dallas. Isaiah, it was funny you mentioned that Cowboys fans have to deal with it for a little bit.
Yeah, they
Just
do.
for a little bit. And that's part of the game, part of being a fan and being all in on your team.
Yeah.
I'm with you because guess what? On the way in this morning, I'm stopped at a stoplight. I'm driving in from my house. I'm at a stoplight and I'm like I think I'm like rustling around. I'm looking for my sunglasses because I'm about to drive right into the sun. And when I'm looking for them, you hear just beeping, constant beep, 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 beep,
On your tail.
And it was beside me.
Oh.
And I was like, what does this guy want? And I was looking at him and it's a truck driver. He's hanging out of the window of his car or of his cab, and he's got his arm and he's like waving to my window, and I'm like, oh gosh, what is going on? I was like, is something happened behind me? Are my taillights out? Like, what's going on? I roll down my window, and he goes, "Good game last night, go Birds!" And then he honks the horn and it drives off. That was this morning.
That's hilarious.
On the way into Talkin Cowboys.
I'm sorry, that's funny as heck.
And
that is funny.
Honestly, credit to him because I don't know how he saw the shirt because he was on my passenger side.
That boy had that eye.
He had the laser vision.
Yeah.
I don't have any Cowboys. I don't have any Cowboys branding on the back of my truck at all.
Yeah,
none.
Eagle eyes, Kyle.
He got the eagle eyes. Yeah, and he.
Hey,
good game last night. Go Birds!
Hey, all the Cowboys, let them have it.
Yeah.
Let them have it. Because the reality is this game knocks you 2.5 games back. Okay? And that sucks. But the game that you're going to play next time you face them most likely is going to be the deciding factor for who walks away with the division title. Just saying, let them have this one. Let them have it. Like, let them go. Like help them. Help them, like, elevate themselves. Like, make them feel good about themselves. You guys did a heck of a job.
I don't know if I want to do that.
Do the Belichick. Pull the Belichick. Good job. Yeah, they're so good.
If he wasn't a semi, I would have cut him off later in traffic.
No, you definitely would have got ran over.
Yeah, not a semi.
No, but listen.
I'm trying to get here on time, guys.
You got to take it. You got to take it. Like, they want you to make excuses. They want you to make excuses. They want you to blame the referees. They want you to talk about Coach McCarthy. They want you to talk about, like, you guys got us. We'll see you again.
I will say I absolutely loved the environment in Philadelphia just
awesome.
all weekend. Like from the moment that we had gotten to the hotel to when we left the hotel, in between driving into the stadium, just hate and birds, and not the birds we're talking about. Even a couple moons. I mean, it was.
You saw some cheeks.
There was some cheeks. There was some cheeks thrown out there. I saw a pair of cheeks.
A pair of cheeks.
2 pairs of cheeks.
Those chicas. That's awesome.
But yeah, I was just listening to my music with my headphones on, and I was honestly just like relishing the moment. Right, there was just middle fingers everywhere.
Born hater.
I am. I absolutely love hostile environments.
You're a
it's like
hater.
I
love it too, man.
But like I'm looking at you, I just see birds. I'm like, this is great. This is awesome. I was like, okay, cool. And I'm like, keep going, another butt. And I'm like, all right, man.
Right.
But the environment was so cool, and
cool.
the way the press box is set up in Philadelphia too, it's like basically right on in the stands, like. Like there's a divider, like there's glass, but like the fans are right there. And every time the Eagles would do something good, they'd turn around and look at all those Dallas beat people and just same ordeal, just birds and drunkenness. I loved it.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, Dallas needs to have the same energy when Philly
you
comes
need to come back to the crib. They gotta come to you.
They need to have the same energy all the way through. All right, we've got some questions on the text line. We won't hit all of these because a lot of them are just yelling, and I get it. I understand it. This one's from Dan in Philly. He said, why did Dak switch the ball from his right hand to his left hand to reach into the end zone on the 2-point play?
Is that the end of it?
I feel like that's it. Well, he called it stupid.
No, not stupid.
He's reaching for the end zone.
Not stupid, Dan. So I'm not sure.
I do want to go through that play though, because Dak stepping out, it certainly had an effect on the game, but that's not an.
Well, first of all, let's do this.
First of all,
there was some linemen up front that got beat, so he was forced out of the pocket. First of all, okay, it wasn't necessarily his plan from the get-go. It was designed, so he was forced out of the pocket. So here goes your quarterback now, getting out of his home. Okay, so he had to go out the house. All right, now he's out there outside, and he's trying to find his way to the end zone. Okay, he's extending the play, trying to see if there's somebody he could pass to, and ultimately it came down to the fact there's like, crap, I'm going to have to tuck this thing and run. All right, when you are running at such a speed with so much weight heading towards a sideline, in order to try to change directions, you have to put your foot in the ground at some point in time. All right, and then if you're going out of bounds, you can't have it in your right hand and the pylon's on your left side. That's not a realistic thing. I don't know what kind of contortionist you believe Dak is, but there's no way that he could even have an opportunity to score unless he switched the ball to his left hand. And as his body now is out of bounds, the ball is in his left hand, and he could try to swipe it across the goal line in front of the pylon. That was the goal. That was his game plan. As that was happening, it just so happens that he didn't cut his pinky toenails. Okay, and he just slipped out of bounds. And it is what it is. It's bad luck, man. I mean, if he could have prevented it, obviously he would have prevented it. He didn't know. He didn't know until he turned back around and they were reviewing it. So, I mean, heck of a play by him. Heck of a play by him to escape trouble, get out on the edge, extend the play, give his receivers a chance to get open, realize that they're not getting open, and now I'm going to tuck it and I'm going to go get this yardage.
Yeah, he talked about it in the post-game press conference. He said if he had to do it over again, he would have gotten vertical a lot quicker. So I think the speed, I think it was Reddick that was closing in. I think it was Reddick. Let's just pretend it was Reddick. He said the speed of Reddick didn't surprise him. He just wished he had gotten vertical.
You're talking about getting to the outside? I believe it was Graham.
Graham. It was Graham. It was Brandon Graham. He wished he had gotten vertical, just like cut in and gone. Yeah, just gone straight.
Credit to Brandon Graham because he stayed with the play all the way through. Sure. He forced him out of bounds.
If there was a play that I would critique on Dak's running, that wouldn't be the one. It would be the one where he tried to jump from
4 yards out and got up.
Oh my God!
At Dak's size, in my head, I'm like, Dak, just run him over. Yeah. Like, run him over. You're 235, 240 pounds. Just run him over.
So he had talked about that play too, and that was his initial intention. He was like, I knew I could take him one-on-one, but at the very last moment, I saw in my periphery another guy, and I was like, okay, let me try to leap for it. No. And he was like, wrong decision. Don't get me wrong,
I would understand if people were disputing that particular run, but not the one where he stepped out of bounds.
No. He was reaching for the goal line.
Absolutely.
His foot slipped out of bounds. I mean, that's just how it goes. Yep. Mike from Boston, this is a good question.
I'm glad you brought this one up. This is what I wanted to touch on.
Mike from Boston, can we please stop with the Michael Gallup experiment? Let's give Jalen Tolbert and Kevontae Turpin job to split. Honestly, right now, Kevontae Turpin and Jalen Tolbert have been better than Michael Gallup. And there's a couple other text messages that are mentioning both Gallup and Brandon Cooks. One said they were on the milk carton this morning whenever they were eating their Cheerios that we talked about on Friday. Neither one of those guys have been here. Neither one of those guys have shown up. So, Nick, I'll let you start. What's next for Michael Gallup? And we can throw Brandon Cooks into that conversation as well.
Look, if something happens with Gallup over the offseason, and he's no longer a Cowboy, I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying if this is going to be the game I look at where things just kind of like officially kind of turned towards the wrong side for good for Michael Gallup, because he had that very critical drop on third down. I believe that was in the second half, or wasn't in the.
I think it was in the first half, but I can give you the exact time.
Yeah, and. You look at what Jalen Tolbert did yesterday when they needed him. You look at what Kevontae Turpin did on the third down and being able to haul that touchdown in on his hurt ribs and have the ball fall on top of it. And then Tolbert being able to do what he did on that the last touchdown drive.
1:25 left in the second.
Yeah, so it was that final field goal drive, I guess. Look, Jalen Tolbert, if you look at the snap counts, he's been cutting into what Michael Gallup has been doing over the course of the last few weeks. And then after that drop happened last night, it was just like full blown, like, all right, Tolbert, this is your opportunity. And he ran with it. Did Gallup still get opportunities on the field? Yes. He drew that pass interference late in the game. That was huge. Absolutely. He's still your big body guy that you want to be able to throw up to. But, I don't know. We're looking at reports this morning of the Cowboys potentially bringing you Martavis Bryant for a workout. This would be tomorrow, Tuesday. It's because there's a liability at receiver, and they would like to be able to find a solution to it. And if I'm looking at liabilities in the receiving core, I look at Michael Gallup first, and I look at Brandon Cooks second. And if we want to touch on Brandon Cooks really quick, what's going on? Like, why can't he not get involved in this
Clear
offense?
Out Cooks.
But he is clearing out. He's getting 2.5 yards of separation. Like, I'm curious to go back on the film. Is this a McCarthy problem? Is this a Dak problem? Like, what is this? I don't know, but we'll see.
I didn't really dive into it. I was mostly looking at play-by-play stuff early. I think that's a multi-game dive to go back in and really decide what's happening here. Isaiah, based on your intuition, what would you say is going on with Cooks? Is that just a play-calling standpoint?
Yeah. He's the clear-out guy. I mean, that's why I called him. I mean, not because of his inabilities, because he's very capable. He's still the best route runner on this roster. I don't care how great CeeDee Lamb's playing. He's still the best route runner on this roster, and he's not being given the opportunities because there's give and take. When your number one receiver wants the ball, you find a way to get him the ball. Other guys are going to suffer. And unfortunately, you brought Brandon Cooks in here to be a complimentary player, to be your number two receiver, and a really good number two receiver, but you're focused on getting your number one receiver the ball so much that you're not focusing on distributing it to your other guys to ease the pain on CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb has 16 targets. 16 targets. Nobody's complaining about that because everybody wants to see CeeDee Lamb eat. He got 191 yards.
Great.
He had production.
Killing it.
surgical.
Absolutely, he's killing it. But
that's something we'll talk about later in the week because CeeDee Lamb has been unbelievable.
Crazy. But
He's been incredible.
But what happens when you force feed your number one? Your number two gets 2 targets. 2 targets.
I don't know what you're talking about. Your number 2 had 7 receptions on 10 targets with 91 yards and a touchdown.
Number 2 receiver.
That's your number 2.
Yeah, your number 2 target is definitely Ferguson, okay, which he's doing a heck of a job. Shout out to Linda Wells and that tight end group. For sure. Yeah, I mean, B. Cooks he's been the clear out guy. And unfortunately, that's what he's been subjected to. And kudos and the highest of regard and respect to him for keeping it shut. Because I said this a couple weeks ago, right before his first touchdown. I said, if this dude doesn't score today, he's probably going to lose it. He's going to lose it because he has been subjected from being a 1,000-yard consistent receiver to being a clear-out guy for CeeDee Lamb. And it's not fair to him.
No.
It's not fair to him. And if you were winning all these ball games, I could eat that. I could eat that, right? I could eat that. I'm not happy with it, but I could eat it because guess what? The ultimate goal is to do what? Win ball games.
Right.
But if we're losing ball games and I'm getting 2 targets, 1 catch for 7 yards, I have a problem. I have a problem because I'm better than this. I'm much better than this. Not only am I better than this, I'm open. Right? But we saw this last year with T.Y. T.Y. was open.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't can he get open? Oh, he came in the season late. Like he was open too, and he wasn't getting the ball. So this is not something that's new. It's just unfortunate that Brandon Cooks has been subjected to being a guy that is now an afterthought, and it's not because of his inabilities.
I agree.
Yeah. I was looking for his separation. Average separation, Brandon Cooks, 4.3 yards.
He's killing people.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. Just for comparison, this is in this game where he had 1 reception for 7 yards. 4.3 yards average separation. CeeDee Lamb, who had 191 yards, had 3 yards of separation. The only player on the entire Cowboys roster that had better separation than Brandon Cooks is the man who has a head start, and that's Tony Pollard out of the backfield. He had 6.2 yards of separation because he's coming from the backfield because he's a running back.
That's
compared to a wide receiver.
Too.
That is a whole nother conversation. There's a text message about it. We'll get to it when we come back. Tony Pollard, where does that weapon get involved? How do you utilize him more? We'll talk about it when we come back right after this with more Talkin Cowboys.
They say champions are remembered, but legends are never forgotten. United Ag & Turf offers a winning lineup of John Deere equipment built to tackle any challenge on and off the field. Legendary John Deere tractors, combines, residential mowers, commercial mowers, compact construction equipment, Gator utility vehicles, and a full line of golf and sports turf equipment. United Ag & Turf, the official Ag & Turf equipment supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. Visit UnitedAgAndTurf.com to find a location near you.
Are you ready to take coffee off your grocery list forever? Black Rifle Coffee Club is here to help. As a coffee club member, you'll get your favorite coffees roasted, packaged, and shipped to your door free of charge on your preferred schedule. Set it, forget it, and never run low on coffee again. Members also get exclusive deals on coffee, products, and discounts from partner brands. Ease your mind and let Black Rifle worry about your coffee supply. Go to blackriflecoffee.com to join the coffee club today.
It's the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black. And right now, Cowboys fans can get 15% off their $75 order. Plus, because every deal needs a playmaker, your order will include a free 5-piece skincare set and free shipping. The Jack Black Playmaker is 4 of Jack's favorites and a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Make a play for the Playmaker at getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys with the code CowboysVIP.
Todd thought it would be secure to jog in the cheetah savanna. Todd believed the big cat repellent he bought online was reliable. And now, Todd is trying to be faster than this cheetah that can run 80 miles per hour. But the good news is, Todd has AT&T 5G that is fast, reliable, and secure. And he learned the best thing to do is stop running and toss her the backpack with the beef stew. AT&T 5G. Fast, reliable, secure. It's not complicated.
5G requires compatible plan and device. 5G may not be available in your area. See att.com/5G for you for details.
Back to Talkin Cowboys.
This segment is brought to you by Invisalign, the official smile of the Dallas Cowboys. Back here on Talkin Cowboys, presented by Black Rifle Coffee Company. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Central Time, we will be on site at Black Rifle Coffee Company.
That's right. Completely forgot about that.
Yeah, please don't forget about it tomorrow.
I did not, sir.
I'm going to show up here. I'm going to be like, where is everybody?
I can't wait.
Please don't do
it's
that.
Like Beam. I'm going to run the show by myself.
Yeah, we'll just be hanging out. Store opening up in the... Do we have... I said I would get the address. I never got one.
I know where it is.
Do you know where it's at? I want to make sure people know. Oh, okay, here we go. FM 423 Frisco, Texas. So North Frisco is where we're headed. 15 minutes north of the Star. If you want the exact address, 16599 FM 423 Frisco, Texas 75033.
Come get a cup of Joe with us.
Please do. Black Rifle Coffee. We're going to be there 9 a.m. to 9:45. I'll get there a little early. I think Isaiah said he'd get there a little bit early.
I'm there.
I probably won't be able to stay late because we have shows to film right after that.
That is absolutely
we gotta book it back over here to the Star. So if you want to see us, come say hi. Get there early. About 8:30 is when I'm going to get there in the morning. So should be fun. Black Rifle Coffee in North Frisco off of FM 423. Come join us. Come hang out. Bring your signs. Bring your coffee. Well, you don't need to bring your coffee. Just get it while you're there.
Yeah,
that'll make it happen.
Purchase.
All right.
We got to tell John. He's not gonna remember.
I talked to him last night, actually.
Okay, good. We got him remember.
Where are the guys at? I don't know.
John's sitting in here. We have him in a remote.
John, to get to that address, he goes, yes, please do.
Yep, North Frisco. That's where we're headed. All right, Isaiah Standback, Nick Harris, Chris Beam in the back. I'm Kyle Yeomans. Lots and lots of text messages. I really wish I could get to all of these. Maybe not all of them, like I said. A lot of them are
rants.
Yeah, I get it. But the majority of the text messages have to do with two people right now. It's number 20, Tony Pollard, and number 78, Terrence Steele. Start with Tony Pollard. That's probably a good 45% of our questions right now. Where is Tony Pollard?
He is.
Where is he?
Look, man, I was thinking about this last night. He's a complimentary back. And there's nothing wrong with being a complimentary back. He excelled at being a complimentary back last year. Wasn't he a Pro Bowler last year?
Yeah.
Yeah, Pro Bowler last year as a complimentary back. There's nothing wrong with that. They need a physical guy, and I think Rico Dowdle can be that guy, but he's not getting the opportunities, which leads me to believe that maybe there's something going on during the week where they don't trust him to carry the ball as much. Looking at the carry percentage, 2 carries for Rico Dowdle last night, and 12 for Pollard. That's back-to-back games where Pollard has had 12 carries. So I guess drawing back the load a little bit and putting it more on the passing side and giving it to Dak, but you're looking at 12 rushing attempts for 51 yards. There's nothing scary about this running game. And I think when this offense was at its best last season and where it's been at its best while Pollard has been here is a scary running game. And they just don't have that. And I'm always a guy who kind of thinks ahead, and sometimes I think a little bit too far ahead when it comes to like the off season. You're on a 1-year deal, you're on a franchise tag with Pollard. If you bring him back and you sign him long term, you have to sign someone else as well, because what you've seen so far this year, you can't be okay with that. At least for me, they're trying to make him a downhill guy, inside zone, and he initiates contact. Last year he was not initiating contact; he was bouncing around contact. Like he was making the first guy miss every single time last year. And this year he sees the first guy, he's like, all right, let me put my shoulder into him. It's like, I love you, Tony Pollard, but you're not that guy. You're a complimentary back you're best utilized with your speed and being able to find little creases. And we saw a little bit of that last night. Like there were a couple of those 7 to 8 yard runs where I was like, oh, there's 2022 Pollard, where he was able to kind of squeeze between the tackles, but it feels like he's initiating contact every time. I think it's a scheme issue. I think it's a running style issue. I think there's a lot of issues that go into Pollard not being as effective as he's been in years past. I mean, can you point to one game this year where you're like, Pollard was a difference maker?
No.
How many games could you point to last year? At least 3.
At least.
Yeah,
maybe more.
I don't know, man. That's got to be an emphasis, and that's a question I'm very curious for the offensive staff to answer today.
Yeah, TP. Honestly, yesterday was the first time all year that I felt like TP didn't look like TP, I guess, throughout the whole game. I feel like most of this year he's been himself in my eyes, just not given enough opportunities. And you know, we mentioned this last night on the post game show, on the OT show, about the 1-2 punch and how in years past he's had Ezekiel Elliott to be the battering ram, right? He was the guy that gets go in there and be the Punisher, and then they get used to that speed, they get used to getting, you know, they get beat down, and then Tony Pollard comes in and he's a lightning bolt and he's a change of pace, right? And he gets to catch guys off guard, and you get to run outside when you've been running inside, and it's just different. Now that's not the case, right? Now you're the guy, and you know, because they're choosing not to use Rico Dowdle as the primary down back, you are the franchise tag player. That is the reality. You should be getting more opportunities than you are. That's the reality. But also the reality is your old line is not moving people off the ball.
Nope.
So there is not just a Tony Pollard thing. He can only do what he is given the opportunity to do. If he's not given any holes, last time I checked, there's only one Barry Sanders that can make his own holes. So you have to give him an opportunity. And I think yesterday was the first time where I feel like he had some opportunities and he didn't hit it the way that you expected him to hit it. And then I feel like he noticed that and he tried to turn it back on, and it was just too late. They had to abandon the run. But anybody who expected to run the ball effectively against Philly, then I don't know. You must have been in the Raiders locker room after the game and partaking what they were partaking in, because there's no way that you're running the ball effectively against the Eagles, not on the inside. And you know, it just is what it is, man. I mean, you threw the ball more than you ran the ball. You had 21 attempts, 6 rushes by Dak, which I would say almost all of those were scrambles. So you're looking at actually like called runs. You're looking at what, 15 called runs?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're not running the ball against Philly. So I'm not going to put too much weight on the disappearance of Tony Pollard in this particular game, but in past games, absolutely, they're not giving him enough opportunities. But his average is sitting at about 4.5 yards, if I'm not mistaken, in terms of his carrying. So he's getting the
3.8.
He's at 3.8. Okay, yeah, they got to get him to rock more.
Yeah,
they got to get him to rock more. Yeah. I mean, they're trying to put him in between tackles. He's not an in between tackles type of back.
Absolutely not.
He's not. So when you ask somebody to do what they're not, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a shell of what you've seen them be in the past.
Last year, really quick, year this rushing offense finished 8th in the NFL in total rushing yards. This year at 19th.
Yeah, they're not running the ball.
And trending lower.
They haven't found a way to equally disperse the ball to all their weapons. That's where this offense is hindered right now. They are fine focused on getting one person the ball, and that is CeeDee Lamb.
88.
That's it. That's who they're focused. And Ferguson, guess what? Your tight end is Dak's best friend. So
he's the safety net.
Yeah, you're going to eat. That position's always been the safety net. But the primary right now is getting the ball to 88, and they haven't found a way, which is okay. But you haven't found a way to do that while still getting the ball to your other weapons. When you think about some of the most prolific offenses in the league, you think about the Kansas City Chiefs, right? They get their primary playmakers the ball, but they still find a way.
Their top receiver is.
But they disperse the ball to everybody, right? Yeah. And you think about the Miami Dolphins now where they got Tyreek Hill. But guess what? Waddle gets the ball, right? Mostert gets the ball. You got all these other cats.
Jeff Wilson, Goldman Green.
Everybody's getting the ball, right? So they're spreading it out. You look at the Houston Texans yesterday, right? I mean, they have 4 or 5 guys with over 100 yards, 4 guys with over 100 yards.
Yeah, something like that.
Noah Brown.
Yeah, like they're spreading the ball around. So you have to find a way to get all your playmakers involved. And right now, I think they're struggling because they're focused on getting their number one guy the ball and keeping him happy. So you just got to find a way.
These two guys that we entered this segment talking about, Tony Pollard and Terrence Steele, what do they have in common from this past year?
They got paid.
They were hurt and they got paid. So there's 2 things. I was thinking the injuries, the payment in there too. But yeah, they both got paid. Tony Pollard differently than Terrence Steele. Terrence Steele got the bag in a multi-year deal. He's good for a little bit. Both of them are coming off of major injuries. Yeah. Which one do you feel like is hindered by their major injury more here in 2023, if anybody?
Yeah, if anybody. If I had to say anybody, it's T. Steele. But I just think yesterday he just got beat. Yeah, he faced Reddick. Reddick was kicking his butt for a good portion of the game.
The Eagles have one of, if not the best front sevens in football.
Absolutely. So, you face a heck of an opponent. And to your point, if you lose on 3 or 4 plays, that's a bad day at the offensive line position. So it's really not in your favor. Tony Pollard has no physical restrictions that I can see. He just has not had the opportunity to make those splash plays. And he has his little burst moments. But when you're getting 12 touches, That's not enough, man.
Yeah.
That's just not enough. If 12 of those, if I'm getting 12 touches and 8 of those touches is in between tackles running into 340-pound D linemen, what do you expect?
Yeah.
Anything to add there?
I think there were a couple of breakdowns from Terrence Steele last night that he just got out-athleted, if that's a word. It was just quick moves, boom, he was done. I mean, it was fast. It was fast movement. And Hassan Reddick, I mean, he's great at it. Don't get me wrong, but T. Steele has shown in the past that he can handle those athletic dudes. He's got athleticism to him. He's got the perfect tackle body to be able to hang with those athletic presences off the edge. And there have been times where it's kind of worried me. And what really worries me, I was looking at up in the third quarter, he had already given up 9 pressures, and I remember he gave up 9 pressures against the Niners as well. I was like, man, is this going to end up being an overpaid situation? And I don't think there's a conclusion there yet. I do not think there's a conclusion there yet, but it's certainly in my mind.
But we talked about this in the beginning of the week as we started talking about this matchup, and we talked about how the offensive line doesn't get to do what? They don't get the sub.
No.
Right? They get no subs.
Yeah,
right?
but no offensive line ever is.
I get it. But I'm talking about, but you take that and you couple that, and our concern was that these guys have waves of defensive linemen.
Yeah.
Right? They have waves of them. So you're dealing a whole game with Hassan Reddick, and then all of a sudden they bring in Brandon Graham as a changeup. Crap, bro. I'm tired. You know, I'm not making an excuse.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, I'm worn down, and they're not. You know what I'm saying? So that's why we start talking about these waves of people. Like, even if you have 5 bad plays out of 44 dropbacks, 44 times you had to protect the quarterback, and I wasn't 100% for 5 of those. That's a bad day.
Yeah.
So it's not in your favor, and that's why they get paid what they get paid to play that position, right? But the reality is you played a really good opponent last night. He wasn't the worst one on the line yesterday. He was not the worst one on the line. He was the one that –
Steele?
Yeah, I don't think Terrence Steele was. I'm going straight to the inside. You know where my eyes went.
Tyler Biotish?
Yeah, buddy.
I mean, yeah, but I disagree. Ooh. It would have to be Terrence Steele. It would have to be.
I think his mistakes were more – I think his mistakes were highlighted more because of where he's at on the field. But I think that in terms of like negating what you can do up front,
that's what we're gonna have to agree.
And that's what I'm saying. We don't have to agree. And but that's where my attention was at. Yeah. And there's plenty of times where Dak was forced out the pocket because of internal pressure,
which is harder to deal with from a quarterback standpoint.
Yeah,
right. And so I'm saying, like,
I agree with Nick, by the way, just because of the sheer number of pressures in this game specifically. But there were times when Dak had to roll out.
I don't disagree on either end, but I'm saying that you're more impacted from the interior than you are from the exterior. And the exterior, the tackles always get all the attention. Nobody's looking at the times where Dak rolls out because on the play where he had to take off and he stepped out of bounds. Nobody's talking about Tyler Biotish. Yeah. Nobody's talking about that, right? But the reason why he had to get out because Tyler Biotish got beat, right? And there was some other guys that were getting beat. I'm not just want to highlight one person, but like those things matter, right? Those things matter, man. And the thing that you played a really good defensive line, you got beat. Go back, watch the film, get better, right? Get better, have better technique, have more sound technique. You can't really get stronger. That is what it is, right? Try to scheme it up. But you got beat, and now you learn from it, and you try to go back and ensure that it doesn't happen again. That's the competitive nature that has to be within you, where you dap them up, you got me. Next time it's not going to happen, I promise you.
One last point on the offensive line. I think there's going to have to be a lot of looking in the mirror and going back to the drawing board this offseason on it. They can't – if this front 5 plays the way that they have in the 3 or 4 games that they played together, if they play that way throughout the course of the season and they continue to allow pressures and there's zero consistency throughout the course of a game, they're going to have to go back to the drawing board. And I know we've talked about Tyron Smith and, is this the last year he's in a Dallas Cowboys uniform, whatever. I don't think that would be the only thing you'd have to go back to the drawing board on. I think I think you'd have to look at all 5 and say, is this guy the permanent solution here? Is this guy the permanent solution here? Where do we need to draft? I think that's probably the biggest thing I look at right now if the offseason started today.
One last text message. Unfortunately, we don't have time to completely address it the way that I would like to. We'll have to talk about it tomorrow at Black Rifle Coffee Company in North Frisco. It says, hey, Talkin Cowboys, this is Josh from Iowa. I'm wondering why you guys are saying it was the offense as the main problem last night. Some say yes, I agree, but let's be real. We needed the defense to come out after halftime and get a stop, and they didn't, or the Eagles' second possession after that, after the half. Basically saying the defense didn't get the job done. I'm not completely putting 100% of the blame on the offense, but when you look at the way that the defense solidified and held in check an Eagles offense that had been running people over, I felt okay by it.
Yeah,
I felt okay.
We don't have time to get into this, but I'm not. Well, first of all, we're not putting blame on anybody.
No.
We're highlighting areas that could have been better.
Sure.
Okay?
Yeah.
So
and
let's get
there are areas of the defense that could have been better for sure.
But we're talking about negating a really good offense to 200 yards passing and 100 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
Like what? AJ Brown had
forced 2 fumbles, but
AJ Brown had won
recover.
9 straight games of 125 plus yards. He had 66.
It's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's half.
And if you look at the defense, they gave the offense 2 opportunities late.
Yeah.
Lost in like the fourth quarter was the fact that the defense forced 3 consecutive 3-and-outs.
Yeah. and they forced those guys to put the ball on the ground 3 times.
Yeah.
And they didn't get the 2 stops out after the half. I get that. I understand that because they came out and they went right down the field, scored, got the ball back, went right down the field, scored. But what happened after that? Didn't get a single point after that. So, great question, Josh. Honestly, I'm glad you brought it up because there are going to be people that blame one side or the other. That's not the case. This was a team loss just as much as these other wins have been team wins. Everybody had a hand in this game losing. Every play had a hand in this game ending up as a loss for the Cowboys. But guess what? Get a chance to do it again next week.
That's right.
Yep.
We'll break it down for you either way, win or lose, as we continue on Talking Cowboys. Tomorrow, Black Rifle Coffee Company will be there at 8:30. We'll be live at 9 o'clock in North Frisco off of FM 423. Should be a fun time. Come say hi. We would love to see all you guys out there and bring the heat. We may even try and take some live fan questions out there while we got an opportunity. How about that? All right, that does it for us. For Chris Beam, Isaiah Stanback, Nick Harris, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long from Talking Cowboys. We'll see you tomorrow at Black Rifle Coffee.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!